Yeah. As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Good morning, everyone. This bright Monday morning. Thank you all for joining me today. Today is going to be part 2 of the conversation we started last week. Why it's important to have oversight over DOC. So first, I want to thank my guests for showing up today. If they can just quickly say hello and just say a little bit about yourself to get started. We'll start with Alex. He's the first one on my screen.
Good morning, Barbara. This is Alex Taubes, attorney Alex Taubes. I'm a civil rights attorney here in New Haven, and I work and I live here in New Haven, and I also represent many people who are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated in the state of Connecticut.
Thank you, Alex. Robin, you're next on my screen.
Good morning, Ms. Barbara. Good morning, fellow panelists. Thank you for having me this morning. Representative Robin Porter, representing the 94th District of Hamden and New Haven. I chair the Labor Committee. I also am a member of Appropriations and Judiciary, and this is a lot of my heartfelt work we'll be talking about this morning. So thank you again for having me.
Yes. Michael?
Hey, good morning, Barbara. Yeah, my name is Michael Bram. I'm formerly incarcerated. I guess that's the main key part to this. I spent the last 20 years in Cheshire. So from 2001 to 2021. So I can speak to why Cheshire needs oversight. I was released on June 23rd of 2021. I'm currently working in New Haven as a paralegal and going to school to study law.
Wow. Amazing. And then Dave.
Thank you for having me, Barbara. David McGuire. I'm the Executive Director of the ACLU of Connecticut, coming to you from our mobile office. I'm driving right now, which is why I'm not on the camera. I've been with the ACLU for just over 14 years, and I've done a lot of work with Barbara and many of the folks on this radio show around trying to make sure the DOC respects people's rights and dignity.
Thank you so much, everyone, for showing up today. I think I have a fantastic crew on today. So I'm hoping we have a lot of listeners so they can get educated. I guess the first thing I want to say is, because the first thing comes to my mind when I think about prisons are a public institution. They're not private plantations. And so when every public institution should have some kind of oversight, and I think pretty much every institution that I know, state agency, has oversight. And so the question is, why does DOC get to not have oversight? And so that's part of our conversation today. For those who don't know, Stop Solitary Connecticut, which is what I'm an organizer for, got a bill passed in the legislation, bipartisan, in June. And that bill was called a PROTECT Act, and would have protected not only incarcerated people, also would have protected the mental health of people who work within that institution. And so we was excited that the bill got passed. It was bipartisan, something that, people never thought would happen. And so we thought we were on our path to ending some of the state sanctioned abuse that goes on inside of the prisons. And I use the word torture many times, which Department of Corrections is not happy about. But then I tell them, I don't know what else you call when you cause such deeply emotional distress to people. I started this campaign to end solitary many, many decades ago with other groups, but it really became a a life for me in Connecticut because my son at the age of 16 was inside of Manson Youth, where there was enough abuse going there at itself. But then the day he turned 17, they sent him to Northern. And that place broke something in my son, that all the love and support that we as a family and me as a mother has given him. And it's broken him. And I don't even see how he'll ever be 100% again, but I don't give up on it. And it just fuels my engine to make sure, to the best of my ability, that not another child's man, woman has to suffer what my son suffered, and not another parent has to suffer what I suffered. And so that's why ending solitary in Connecticut is very, very important to me. After the governor vetoed our bill, he put in this executive order, which to me was just wasted paper. But we'll stop talking. We won't even talk about that. So this year is the 50th year of the rebellion at Attica Prison. And I know many people may not know about that, but it's something to Google up and get information on, because a lot of the conditions that were going on that caused the rebellion back in 1971, and it was a deadly rebellion because there were people that ended up killed there and during that time. But a lot of demands that they were asking for then are the same demands that people have been asking forever in Connecticut. And from letters that I receive now, I just feel like we're getting so close to Attica history, because people are at the end of their rope, you know, with all the things that we're doing out here, trying to bring them relief, and our governor just not hearing it, not allowing it to happen. So one of the things I want to do real quick, and I'm going to prepare you, Michael, for coming up next. So I wanted to read a little bit from a letter recently that I received from someone talking about some of the conditions. And this is someone also from Cheshire. He said the legislature back in 1989 decided to make prisoners pay taxes on commissary. And this is kind of old news, because back then he was saying how one day a carton of cigarettes was $9, the next day was $16. These are some of the issues that grew out of legislative mandates that were made. He talked about what it was like back then. He said, I worked during the weekday, but still had rec from 4 to 10 p.m., 7 days a week, from 1994 till early 1996. The recs were in the yard. They were like 9 to 10:30. Then you lock up, then you have lunch, then lock up, then you're out for count. And then he said, then you're back out for the rest of the evening till 10 o'clock. He said, all the tiers were out. They worked together. Most guys didn't bother coming out, as they could come out whenever they felt like it, because shower and use of the phone was pretty much wide open. There, he said there were really no problems, occasional fight, but he said that happens in the schools, on the streets, and especially expected in a prison where they're forcing guys who aren't compatible to live, eat, and shower together. He talked about today. He said the COs have gotten fat and lazy. They want to get paid to sit on their butts and play with their phones rather than have to watch us play cards or using the phones. They get upset because none of this new generation of COs knows what it used to be like to work in DOC. And so now they just have to watch us for most of their 8-hour day, because most of the time is spent in cells. He said now the guards and the unions have used the governor executive order as a way to use our eating time to be considered out of cell time. And I've heard this from quite a few people. So even though the executive order mandated 2 hours out of the cell, they're saying what used to be just regular eating times are now contributing to their out of cell time. He said even if sick call is as part of their time out of cell. So in other words, the governor's executive order, like I said, was a wasted piece of paper. the guards are using that to pretty much do what they want to do. There's no accountability to anyone, so they can get away with that. And that's why we demand accountability as we come forth this next session with our bill in place. Last time, we compromised on the oversight because the commissioner said from the day he was confirmed, he didn't want any oversight and he didn't want any community input, which was another part of the bill that we wanted. We wanted people from the community to have input in what's going on. We wanted people that are incarcerated who are actually experiencing this to be at the table of reform. And he was adamant he didn't want any of that. Well, we're going forth this next session and we're demanding accountabilities in place because we can see as a result of the executive order that the guards pretty much do what they want to do. There's no one policing DLC. And that's a question I'll ask Robin later because I don't understand how they get away with not having oversight. But for now, we only have an hour and I'm trying my best to do what I think is 2 to 3 day conference, trying to do it in an hour. So I want to bring it right to Michael just to talk about the experience of being inside for all those years and what it feels like, you know, coming home and what kind of resources were provided you, you know, and pretty much since you just got out in June, I guess you can tell us what's going on now since the executive order. Thank you so much for showing up today.
Yeah, no problem. It's my pleasure. And I mean, everything you said, like what whoever wrote you that letter, I can attest that everything that person said is true. Everything that person said is true. And I don't know, thinking through what I was going to say today, I thought about, like, you know, my personal issues. So one thing that was big was medical, right? Access to medical care. And I guess I'll go back to what you first introduced, which was this executive order that is being flouted by Department of Corrections. It's crazy because I just actually got off the phone with somebody at Cheshire and I told him I was going to be on the show and I asked him, I said, is there anything that you want me to say? And then he was like, yeah. And he you know, he said that, you know, the executive order is, you know, is essentially being ignored, right? And I was there for some of this as well. Like, remember, I got out in June and, you know, the Protect Act was going through the legislature. So to kind of like preempt that, one of the things that Department of Corrections officials was doing was they were affording, I mean, anybody that knows about Cheshire, you know about Cheshire. Cheshire has always been 1 hour in the morning or in the first shift and 1 hour on the second shift, which was the allotted time to shower, use the phone, and do whatever else you needed to do outside of the cell. You did within that hour if they gave it to you. You didn't get the hour. It wasn't guaranteed that you was going to get that hour, but there was 2 allotments, one on the first shift, one on the second shift. And then so to kind of like preempt the Protect Act, they changed Cheshire's longstanding 1 hour policy to 1.5 hours, right? And so the guards rebelled, right? So it's kind of like it seems like we're saying it's a top-down thing, and in large part it is. But even when the order is given, the union and the guards, rank and file, come up with a way to do what they want to do, right? And so what they did in this instance, when, you know, the commissioner said, okay, Cheshire, enough of this, 1.5 hours each shift. They gave it up for, you know, maybe a week or so. And then, you know, in that time, I guess they were strategizing. And what they came up with was a concerted calling out sick. So when they do this, they call out sick, and then the facility staffing level, I guess whatever contract they have, they can't go below a certain amount of staff. So knowing the number, they make sure that they're below that number so the facility goes into lockdown. So now the guys don't get any out of cell time, right? This is how they did this for a period of time until, you know, the higher ups just acquiesced and said, okay, it's back to 1 hour. Yeah. And then everything was okay, right? And it was back to what they do. So just to kind of shorten this thing up, the guy that I just talked to on the phone said, this is what they're still doing this. And so on the weekends, they don't even come out. So they'll call out all weekend. right? Because you don't have, the warden's not on the facility, the deputy warden's not on the facility during the weekend, and they're not their second shift. So this is a time where they mostly, brought these orders and break these rules when there's nobody there to hold them accountable, right? And I say that right, like I'm charitable when I say holding accountable, right? Because they do a lot of things. I mean, think about it. There are logs that are kept every day, that everything that's done. So if the the warden or the commissioner or anybody else wanted to check these people's behavior, the logs are there to say that what happened. The videotapes are there to say what happened. Nobody's coming out, right? No showers, no phones, no nothing. And so, kind of tying this back into my personal experience, right? Being in prison, two things weighed heavy on me and would have broke me if I didn't get out. And that was access to mental health. I mean, not mental health, access to healthcare, right? And this, what your author had said about being confined in a cell for so many hours a day, right? And then being forced to do that with either persons who have mental health, people who and the mental health manifests in many different ways. It could be violent. It could be any number of antisocial behaviors. It could be anything. It could be just poor hygiene, and you're in a small space with somebody else and being forced into that, right? And so I think a lot of the problems that are in the DOC, and I mean, when I say that, I mean like on the, I can't even call it the inmate level, but a lot of problems stem from this lack of out of cell time, right? Because now everything has to be done in the time when you're out. Some guys will skip a shower to try to get things done. And then that's the inconvenience to the cellmate, because now that person has to smell your body odor because you skipped the shower, essentially because you were forced to skip a shower, right? When the person that told you about, when we used to come out and it used to be like essentially just locking up a few times a day for count, there was no drain on the resources, right? The shower wasn't an immediate thing. The phone wasn't an immediate thing. So it could be, a few guys at a time using those 6 showers, few guys at a time using those 10 phones, and everybody used, right? Rather than, because it wasn't you didn't have to, it wasn't such an urgency, right? You didn't have to line up, like literally in Chester, you got to line up, especially if you go to the gym or you do exercise or whatever. You got to line up in line and wait. So you're waiting your hour. Like as many times I sat there and I brought something to read with me and I sat by the shower, and essentially my whole hour was gone because I had to wait for the shower. I get in, I shower, I come out. By the time I get ready to come out and be presentable, the hour is over. You can't call anybody, you can't do anything. So that's that, right? The medical side of it. And I think this was big for me, and maybe not so much so for people that are doing shorter terms of incarceration. But when you're in there for decades and you're going to be there for decades, you want to know that you're okay, right? And so you're not doing screenings, right? They're denying you, especially when you're getting up in age, you're denying you prostate screenings, they're denying you colonoscopies, they're denying you basically anything that's going to cost money to do. They're going to try not to do it, right? And so me, I'm fortunate, right? Both being in and being out now, I'm fortunate. So, I was there, and, whenever my rights were violated, I used the courts to, if I had to, I used the grievance process, and if that didn't work, I went to court and I filed an action, right? Everybody doesn't have that capability, right? And so I did that, and I think that in school kind of helped me to maintain my grip on my sanity, right? And so, I don't know. I'll just wrap up by saying this. All those years in there, worrying about my, what was going on inside, right? Because there's many guys I know that was in there who they weren't diagnosed until they were terminal. So that was always something in the back of my mind, like, I wonder if I got cancer, and I wonder if I'm going to make it out of here, or whether or not I make it out the door and then die soon after, right? Just things that I just didn't want to happen to me. And so, coming home, I've jumped on it. I, recently, I think last week, last week, Tuesday, right? Last week, Tuesday, I got a colonoscopy, clean bill of health. I feel good, right? So I'm fortunate, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people aren't, and and I don't want to sound like prideful or hubris or whatever, but a lot of weaker people wouldn't survive, 20 years, 25. I did 25 years. A lot of other people wouldn't survive that. And, I looking back, I can see how I did it, right? Because I always had a deadline. I always was busy. I always had something going. And I'm stubborn. So I just didn't let it happen to me. And God didn't let it happen to me. But, that being said, the Department of Corrections does need oversight. There's a lot of abuses going on. And I don't want people to feel like I'm bashing the DOC either, right? There's a lot of good people in the DOC, but the Department of Corrections is a people talk about prison gangs, right? And you do have prison gangs, but I think the biggest, I know the biggest prison gang. The biggest prison gang is the guard union itself, right? And so, what do they do? What do gangs do? Gangs use intimidation to make people do what they want them to do, right? And so when you're in that brotherhood, it really doesn't matter what your core values are, because if you're not a strong person to be able to go against the tide, then you'll just go with the pack. And that's what largely happens inside the Department of Corrections. And you can't really blame a person because that's their livelihood, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, oversight needs to come in. That way, the good people can be good people,
right,
and the bad people can be pushed out.
Right. Thank you so much. It's hard for me to hear, that we actually, as a society, treat people the way we do. And I think that's the hardest part of this journey, is because I feel like prison culture is so directly connected to the institution of slavery. And that's where a lot of this degradation and dehumanizing comes from. And that's a huge part to get past. But like you said, even though you have good people inside of DOC, they get drawn into that culture. And so how do we change this system that we have? So I'm just gonna quickly touch on mental health, and I want to hear from some of my other guests. A recent article in the Connecticut Mirror said that of the over 9,000 people that are inside, that they think they only determine that 780 people of those over 9,000 people are determined vulnerable mentally. For me, it's hard to get to see how they come to that determination, when I would think, as a human being, putting someone in a cage is traumatizing in itself. Even if you didn't abuse them, it's a trauma. And so that would affect someone's mental health. So how do you help me to understand that only 780 people of your over 9,000 people have a mental health issue? And then on top of that, when they reported on the status of mental health in DOC, they say they have a score of 1 to 5. And they said 96% of people are under that score of 3, which means they don't need any mental health treatment. And that's hard to believe. I just can't believe that someone can be in a cage being treated that way, especially now when you're being locked down days on days. How does that not affect a person's mental health? And the reason I'm concerned about the mental health is because when those people eventually are going to come home, those people are coming back to our community, and they're coming back as broken people. And we somehow have to find a way to understand what they've been through and support them in any way we can. And like I said, many times, what happens to people, especially like in Northern, that place was maniac place. Especially in a place like Northern, how do we ever get people to recover from that. So I don't have any faith in their ways of determining who needs mental health treatment. So I think I'm going to go right to Robin, because I'd like to know, as a legislator, why is it so difficult to get oversight over DLC? Why?
That's a good question, Ms. Barbara. And I think from my perspective, doing this work and having a son that did almost 7 years in these state prisons in Connecticut, I think that first and foremost, the people, the lawmakers that are making these decisions are detached and disengaged. I sit on the Judiciary Committee, and I've often recommended, I don't think you should be able to serve on that committee unless you routinely pay visits to each and every single prison and detention and Manson Youth, where we keep our young people in prison. You have to talk to these people. The people closest to the problems are closest to the solutions, but oftentimes furthest from the power. How do we empower them? The people with power have to meet them where they are. Mm-hmm. So I think that this has been allowed to go on because, number one, folks turn their head, and I'll be the first to admit, you know, until my son went to prison, I wasn't intimately involved in what happens to people, how they're treated, what their conditions are. But my personal experience and my son's lived experience draw me deep into incarceration and what it looks like and how inhumane it is. So I think that it's also about educating not just lawmakers and requiring them to have intimate contact with these folks, right, on a routine basis, but it is also about educating the public and our constituency around what the facts are and what's really happening, because it's really unfortunate at times, you know, media can be used to put forth a narrative that actually dispels the truth, right? So we have to have some truth sayers and some folks that are not afraid to stand up and speak that truth, right? And speak power to power. We say speak truth to power. We know the truth and we ain't doing nothing about it, you know? So I'm at a point now where, you know, put your money where your mouth is. It's time to put up or shut up. We've done enough talking, and there's really no reason why I see, and many other folks see, that Protect Act should have been vetoed. You know, it was the right thing to do, and it's always the right time to do the right thing. So I say, you know, don't wait for this to hit home. Don't wait for it to be someone that you love and care about, your child, your brother, your father, you know, your close friend, to have to be involved with the penal system in Connecticut. Find out what's happening and fight for these folks now, because at the end of the day, you know, no matter what they've done, they're human beings just like all of us.
Thank you. Alex, you have a lot of association with people that are incarcerated. You do, it seems like the bulk of your work is for the people that are incarcerated. Talk about that experience and just the experience of going on the inside and talking to people and hearing from people what they're going through.
Well, it's definitely been an eye-opening experience to visit in the prisons and visit with people who are incarcerated. You know, you go to law school, you see things on television and you see the popular media representations, but it's also, you know, it's very different from the truth. And there are a lot of stories of what's happening in Connecticut that I think the citizens of Connecticut would not be happy to learn about. This is the way that we're running the state. And particularly the fact that over the past year and a half, pretty much everyone in the state who's incarcerated has been under a solitary confinement condition in terms of the amount of time that they're allowed out of their cell and how frequently they're locked down for 23 hours or 24 hours for the day in the cell. You know, it's disturbing, and it's going to have a long-term effect on the people who it's being done to. And then you look at some of the other prisons in our state, and there's even toxic conditions, like at the Osborne prison, where there's asbestos, PCBs, there have been arsenic in the water, lead in the water, and now even Legionnaire's disease in the water, causing people to get sick. People are coming home sick and with cancer, where it's questionable whether they're getting that sickness and cancer from the prison system. So it's very disturbing. And the court system really doesn't want to do anything about it because the court system is very complicit in the suffering of people who are incarcerated. The judges obviously sentence people to the prisons. They know what happens there, but they sentence people anyway to these really, really long sentences. And the laws are very biased against people who are incarcerated complaining about what has happened to them. So if they don't follow the exact rules that the prison sets down for complaining, even if they have a valid claim, in the end, the judge could say, well, you didn't go through the remedy system of the prison, so your case can get thrown out on that basis. And the state, their main concern is minimizing the liability, how much they could have to pay out to people. So they're not necessarily concerned with ending a problem and fixing it so that people don't have to suffer. So we definitely need to have more oversight of the department. Most states have independent oversight of the prison system. Overall, it's a long-term benefit to the state because when you allow things to fester and get worse and worse over time, then in the end, it makes it even worse for everybody. So it's better to have more open oversight of the Department of Correction. And I hope that we can progress to that and shine a light on the governor's really wrong action of vetoing the PROTECT Act. Is really a morally bankrupt position for him to take.
Thank you. David, I know you're traveling. Are you available to talk?
I am, and I'm almost where I'm heading to, but yeah, I'm fine to talk.
Okay. Talk to me about what ACLU's involvement in the PROTECT Act and getting oversight into the prisons, and just have you had any experience actually being inside of a prison yourself?
Sure. So on that last point, I've had a lot of time in prison meeting with clients over the first 10 years or so of mine at the ACLU when I was staff attorney and interim legal director for some time. And that has been the bulk of our work here in terms of litigation and policy work in a lot of senses since I've been at the ACLU over the last 14 years. Because it's the highest need, as you and Michael, thank you for sharing your experience, points to, the DOC it's really problematic. They're the entity that needs the most oversight, yet they have none, and they also can promulgate their own directives without any oversight as well. So we've seen that result in people being brutalized, tortured, and routinely deprived of their rights. So we spent a lot of time on that, and I've seen firsthand. I mean, the lawsuit that was filed around the water conditions and people getting ill. I distinctly remember sitting in visitation rooms, seeing the CEOs come in for their shifts with 2 1-gallon jugs of water because they knew it was unsafe to drink the water. Yet the incarcerated people were forced to, and to bathe in that water as well. So that lack of oversight and just willful ignorance from the executive branch is a huge problem, and it's something that needs to be addressed this session, as Representative Porter said. I mean, the correction unions and legislators on both sides of the aisle who just have really no interest or perceived incentive in dealing with it, that needs to change. And the ACLU, has had to sue the DOC twice during the pandemic and multiple times over the last couple of decades because there's just really no other way to find accountability. And as Alex said, even that is not the most fruitful way to force compliance. So there really needs to be a meaningful community-based oversight entity established, and we're going to fight hard alongside Stop Solitary to find that into law.
Thank you, David. And I really appreciate all the help that ACLU has given us throughout the years. I just want to ask this question, and either one of you can answer it. When you look at what's happening in Connecticut prisons, and believe me, this is prisons everywhere, because one fact about prisons across this nation, even if African Americans are a small portion of their general population, they are a huge part of their prison population. In Connecticut, the I think the general population for white people is close to 70%, but yet if you look at the prison population of people of color, it's over 71%. So I think that has a lot to do with why we have legislators who just are not that interested in changing what's going on in prison. So, but do you guys think that there's any possibility that we can ever get, in Connecticut at least, get past this Connecticut's history of abuse and racism and violent nature? I mean, is there a possibility it could happen in your minds? I know I said anyone can answer, but anyone can just jump in.
I'll go after Mike.
Yeah, I'm too pessimistic to say yes.
Mm.
I mean, racism is so entrenched. It's like I just don't see a way of it coming out. Like the only way I see it coming out and is when we reach this point where most of the population is biracial. That may, but then you got classism. That's going to take its place, right? And so we always going to have some type of hierarchy in our social system and structures, right? But I wanted to leave the listeners with an example, like something to kind of visualize what we're talking about, right? And so units in these housing units in Cheshire, they have like, so some units have 102 people capacity and some have 100 capacity or 99, right? And so that's 104 guys or 100 guys having to take a shower in a 1 hour shower period. I did the math. That's 1.2 minutes, right? And so even if we said that we were going to take 1 minute showers, right? It's no way that people are going to get dressed and undressed to be able to go in and use these 6 showers, right? So some of the units have 6 shower capacity and some have 10 shower capacity, right? But there is rarely a moment when all 6 or all 10 showers are operable, right? So it's always a deficit there and it's always an impossibility there, right? And so this is the kind of absurdities that go on constantly in a place like this with no oversight, right? Because you got people who make rules that make the rules not from the standpoint of the person that's most affected by the rule, right? So it's like you can even bring it up and say, well, how can 104 guys take a shower in 1 hour? The time doesn't permit.
Right.
Well, wait till second shift, or whatever kind of excuse, or whatever response can come to your mind is what you'll get. But it's nothing that's practical or workable. And so, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, and the solutions, some simple and some not so simple.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Barbara. If I could, I mean, I do think I agree with you, Michael, that it's going to be nearly impossible to undo our entire country and state's racist history. But if we're wanting to root racism and white supremacy out of our correction and penal system, we have to basically get rid of the carceral system. And the way to do that really is to change the way that prison and police unions operate. I mean, I think Alex can probably speak to this pretty powerfully, but they are a tremendous impediment to any reform and undoing, and essentially divestment from police, because you have to start from the start. And prosecutors and DOC and judges all play a role in it. But in order to get past our racist history and current practice, we need to just get rid of the carceral system. And it starts with shows like this, and essentially white people waking up, acknowledging the humanity of Black and brown people, and then protecting it. And we see glimpses of that, but we need that to be something that is a full-fledged effort to change it.
I'll just add to that, Ms. Barbara. I think it's more than just white people. I think it's Black, brown, indigenous, all of us. We all play a role in this. And I'm surely, and I so respect what you said, Michael. Like I said, I have a son that served a fraction of your time, but the impact is real. And he carries a lot of them with him today. I'm glad to say that he is achieving and overcoming. But I know there are battles that I have no idea he's dealing with. Because that was his lived experience and not mine. Although I feel like we all did the time with him,
Yes.
he really did it, right? But what I will say is, Miss Barbara, I have to hold on to hope. I have to walk by faith because that's just who I am, and how God has built me, right? In this role that I'm playing as a legislator right now in this season of my life. And I have to say that I think, things are not going to change until we change the people in power. And those people have to be the people that are closest to the pain, the people with this lived experience, the oppressed, the marginalized, the demonized, the criminalized. Those are the people that are not only going to have to sit in seats of power, but in seats of leadership in power, because the body does what the head tells it to do. And until we change who is sitting at the helm and who is controlling, right, where we're headed, like to basically chase our tails. And, they throw us just enough, a crumb is what I call it. And the folks that are satisfied, I'm like, it's like really the crumb snatchers. I want an entire meal. I want an entire pie. I don't want a piece of nothing, right? And people say, oh, well, all or nothing. We can't, you gotta, incrementally, little by little. And I'm like, we don't have time for that. Where is the sense of urgency in what we're talking about? We're talking about people's humanity. We're talking about dignity. We're talking about livelihood, and then we get upset because these folks come home, the people we love and care about, they come home. And then it's like, well, you're lazy because you're not working. You can't work. You got over 500 barriers in the state of Connecticut that keep you from working, from housing, from certificates, from education, from all the things that would give you one up, right? To all the things that would actually level the playing field for you. They say if you do the crime, you do the time, but that's not true. You come home with what I call the Scarlet F. And if you have a felony, it follows you for the entirety of your life. And that is not justice. So let's not act like the scales of justice are equal, and let's not act like Lady Justice is blind, because we know that is not true. The disproportionate impact on communities of color, especially Black communities, is real, whether they want to keep the data or not, because it's data driven. And there's a reason why, I believe we're having a hard time getting oversight. And let's just be honest about it. When we talk about DOC, it's been reported that Connecticut is the only state that doesn't have oversight for DOC. And if that is the case, if that is indeed true, then the real question, Ms. Barbara, is why is Connecticut the only state that doesn't have DOC oversight? And let's not forget the profit in this business, this industrialized prison complex. Let's not miss that, because it has always been and continues to be profit over people. And we cannot continue to treat people the way we do when we send them away and expect them to come back any different than they do.
Well, I know if you go on Connecticut DOC website, you'll see them using words like professionalism, dignity, excellence, respect, integrity. These are hold on a minute, I have to wash those words down. These are the words that DOC claims that they're about. And I'm sorry, I haven't seen any of that yet. But I think until legislators, I think legislators have the duty, because you make the laws, that there has to be public inspection on a regular basis, unannounced, unrestricted, inside of those prisons. I think until that at least happens, DOC will continue to do what they do. Now, I just want to ask you on that point, Robin, because I know you've visited prisons. Are you able to go in when you get ready, unregulated, walk wherever you want to walk, talk to who you want to talk to? What's that like?
I say yes because it's me. I can tell you early on that was not the case. It was that thing that was understood that it was already rehearsed. I mean, I get letters just like you and Gary, several of us do get mail from people that are incarcerated in Connecticut. And I see it as the truth. I don't feel they have a reason to lie. And they let me know, well, we knew you were coming because, they got the bleach out, they got it nice and clean. And, like they picked the best of the best, to come out for us to meet. One of the first times that I visited it, I remember they were lined up alongside the walls when we came in, and it was kind of like you were expected, like, not to really say anything to them. They didn't give you a lot of eye contact. And I just started breaking the line and walking up to, the brothers, shaking their hands. Hey, how you doing? I'm Rep Porter. What's your name? Just breaking the ice, having some conversation with them. They were in the gym. Someone was shooting hoops. I went in there in heels and grabbed the ball and, started shooting, just letting them know I'm not here for the show, and I don't see you as being on display, and I feel like that's what they make it feel like, not just to them, but to those that go in as well. So I was just trying to really bring the humanity. And I think that DOC, I have, good relationships and then decent relationships with those in leadership within DOC. And what you see is what you get. They know me, they know what to expect when I come. I never come to cause confusion or trouble. Good trouble, necessary trouble, but not just to be messing around. I'm there on a mission and I'm there seeking the truth. So for me, it has been my experience that when I request to go in, they meet that request. If I show up, and I don't really just show up to be showing up. Most of the times they do get a heads up that I'm coming. But for me, it's been a good experience in the way that I am able to talk to the inmates and have, real authentic conversations with them. And it's just crazy because some of them have actually came home and like we ran into each other in family homes, right? Like where they were close to someone I'm close to. Was like, oh my God, you don't remember me. I was that dude in solitary confinement. And I kept asking, who's that lady? And you walked over. Remember you was talking to me through the little square? And he made me remember him. And I was like, oh my God. And then to come to find out, he had actually been my son's cellmate at one point during their time inside. So it's like, it's meaningful to me. It's personal to me. It's intimate to me. They matter to me. Yeah. And this is why I do the work I do and why I fight the way I fight, because, it could be any one of us on this panel in jail, in prison, or a loved one who's locked up. I think we're all, especially when you're Black and brown, just one stone's throw from serving time. So I take it seriously. But yeah, I have to say that DOC has met me where I needed to be met when I'm inside that building, to talk to the folks that mean a lot to me, to all of us.
Well, on that, I'm hoping that there'll be more legislators that will take up that banner with you, because we need a lot more people inside.
That's true.
I want to go to I want to go to Alex, because Alex and I used to before pre-COVID would work with the women at York. And I didn't do my orientation with Alex, so I don't know how his was, but listening to you, I remember when I first came in, and same thing, they had the women lined up against the wall on both sides of the wall. And then we were walking through, and I just started saying, good morning, ladies, how are you? Things like that. And so I actually said something to one of them, and I smiled, and I heard one of the women say, oh my gosh, she actually smiled. And then I thought, I said, they're not accustomed to that? So when we went back in the room, the first thing she said is, I want to warn you against getting close to people. Don't believe things that they say, keep your distance, they can't be trusted, they can harm you, all of this kind of stuff. And I said to her, I said, if this is the way I have to be, this is the way I have to act when I come here, I can't even say good morning to people. I said, then I don't think this is a position for me. But she did kind of let me just be myself. But, and Alex can talk about it too, but Alex like, we did things like Mother's Day, bringing in, I brought all these journals in just to make them feel special about Mother's Day. And we would bring stickers in because they love stickers, things like that. I brought music in. but they were not really happy with Alex and I coming in. And then from time to time, we would see a guard show up in our meeting to see what we were talking about. But, you know, me and Alex worked a way to make sure we do what we came there for. It was debate, but we also spent a lot of time inspiring them women. And one of the first things that I told the women when I went there, stop calling yourself an inmate. You're not an inmate. You're a woman. You're incarcerated, but you are a woman. And don't let that system take that away from you. So anyway, Alex, I'll let Alex talk a little bit about being on the inside too.
I'm maybe more optimistic that we could find ourselves in a future where a lot of these abuses and things, these horrible stories and outcomes are not taking place so much anymore in our state. It's a small state. It's not, you know, the vastness of the entire United States. We have the power as concerned citizens to voice our opinions and make change. And we know our legislators, they're our neighbors, and we have a voice here. There's a lot of really smart young people in the state who are learning and about what's going on and are very active and are making a lot of change around climate change. And there needs to be a climate change within our state as well about how we treat each other. When it comes to a lot of these things, I think there are a lot of solutions. I mean, you know, we don't see a lot of, you know, we have conditions in Connecticut prisons that are like Attica, you mentioned, but we don't have riots in Connecticut prisons. And in fact, the amount of violence in the Connecticut prisons is a lot lower than you would expect given the amount of conditions, horrible conditions. So, and furthermore, you've seen the amount of people in prison go down in the state substantially since 2008. And the crime rate has gone down as well, which suggests that we have been incarcerating a lot of people who are not dangerous. And there's more people who are incarcerated still who are not dangerous. And even for people who are not yet convicted, people who are unsentenced, who are being held because they don't have enough money for bail, today, there's really no danger anymore that anyone's ever going to flee their case. No one ever gets, you know, who gets away? No one, because it's impossible. With the technology and everything today, I mean, I know David is against all this technology because, you know, the civil liberties implications, but the truth of the matter is, and there is no privacy anymore. People don't run from jail. So why do we have to lock people up before their trial if we're going to know where they are at and they're going to be brought back to the trial regardless? So I think we could have a state with a lot fewer people in jail than we have now. It's a safer state. And the big battle, as they said, is people who are making money off of it right now. We need to transition them to other ways of making money than just making money off of locking people up all day, all night, but never letting them out because it's not needed. It's not needed. So I'm optimistic that we can do something. Also with medical, let people go to see an outside doctor. What are they going to do? Run? They're not going to get far. Let people bring their loved ones who are incarcerated to their family doctors. That'd be easy fix. They're not going to run. You know, people who are sick who need to go to see a doctor. So there's a lot of things that we could do to make it easier for people, get rid of some of these problems. And I'm confident that we will because we have no other choice. And these are our fellow citizens.
We have 45 seconds left. So I just want to say I'm between Michael and you and Robin. I've been doing this work for so long that I just can't see how things are going to change. But I also, like Robin, I'm built on hope, and I feel without hope I have nothing. So I cling to hope because, I mean, what do we have without it? So yes, I'm going to continue to hope that things will get better. It's going to take a lot more than what's happening now. It's going to take a lot more people standing up and stepping up to the plate and it begins with educating them. So I'm hoping the people that were listening today learned a little bit more. Like I said, we only have an hour, so we can't say that much, but I hope they learned a little bit more, and it is actually inspiring them to act. Thank you so much for all of you showing up today. And I look forward to working with you in the future, and have a great Monday and a great week off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara.
Yeah. As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road. Let's get